We're continuing now with our special 6:30 look at the gift of sobriety. Before the break, we heard from Betty, and now we're hearing Rob's recovery story.
What did you start with? How old were you?
About 26 years old, started with opiates, just pills, and progressed from that to heroin. So,
Okay, your story's a little bit different than some of the ones I've already talked to. People don't just necessarily in their 20s pick up a bottle of pills. People do. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that a lot of times there's a progression that leads up to something like that. So share your story.
Well, I think it started with just kind of experimenting, and it was the first time in my life where I'd taken an opiate at that age. And
did you need it, or was
I did not?
Okay.
It's more of an experimentation thing, and it was at that point when I felt like I was missing something, and that really delivered it. So moving forward from there, kind of being ignorant to the long-term effects of it, you quickly develop a physical addiction to that substance.
How bad did things get in your life? And when did you know you had a problem?
Probably realized it when I was about 28 years old, a couple of years of using. And I was living out on the West Coast and in Las Vegas at the time when I was 29 and 30 years old. I got into a lot of trouble out there and actually ended up going to prison out there. And the reason it's different this time is this is probably the first time in my recovery where I've wanted it for myself.
So before, it was people telling you to do it, or you had to?
That's exactly right. It's always someone telling you, here's where you need to go, here's what you need to do, here's the consequences if you don't. So that's fine and well, and it works for maybe a little bit of time, definitely not for long term, until you want it for yourself.
The first time you did heroin, did you think before you did it, I shouldn't be, and then you did it anyway, or was it just full-on party mode?
Well, that's the interesting kind of the philosophy of the opiates is you graduate to this next level, and people view heroin as something that's totally separate from other types of pills, and it's really one and the same. There's just the rise in the cost of per milligram of pill. Eventually you don't have the money to continue that part of the addiction. So, and also the availability used to be a lot different in the mid 2000s or early 2000s as opposed to now with all the restrictions on opiates. So what you're seeing today, and which is what happened to me at the time, is these pills are so expensive, and essentially the same thing is heroin. So you get a lot more and it's cheaper.
It's a lot more dangerous, it seems like, but I don't know, because I haven't done either. I mean, when I needed some pain medication after having surgery for giving birth, I said I'm not going to take anything like that because it was all over the news and it scared me. Did it ever scare you? I mean, because you experimented with it.
Right, and unfortunately, you lose that fear eventually, and also the fear of the consequences don't mean anything anymore, especially when you're suffering from an addiction caused by opiates and the physical withdrawal and the symptoms from that. So your main focus is not recovery, it's not anything other than whatever I need to do to continue my use.
The holidays this year, are they different for you, or have you had some good holidays in the past 10 years since you've struggled?
I have, and honestly, it's when I reflect back on things, I'm 16 months sober now, and the difference between now and then is I would try to kind of avoid the holidays, to be honest, because I was never really doing well. And it's actually been pretty much in my entire 30s. And
as you look forward to the holidays now, what goes through your head?
It's nice to be healthy again and have healthy relationships and concentrating on being happy and doing the things that are making me happy, and just being with my family again.
And you have some pretty lofty goals. You're in grad school, and tell people what it is that you want to do with your future.
Well, I want to get into clinical therapy, so eventually, long term, I want to have my own practice, and it's focusing on addiction. So there's an integrated recovery, but there's co-occurring disorders, and there's a huge mental health side to this addiction. So I think it would be rated. So that's kind of my long-term goal, is to have a clinic where I specialize in those things and I treat you one-on-one.
No, that's amazing. And, so the best people to help others are those who've been down that road. I
Right.
wish you nothing but the best with that, Rob. Thank you for sharing your story.